What I'm thinking about, and this came from a Joel Sherman thought exercise, because Joel, I'll give him credit, he often thinks, all right, there's a free agent market. How many teams can actually sign this guy, this star player? And as we talked about the star shortstops, I tried to see who already has a star shortstop that doesn't need one. And when I looked at Texas, I thought, well, there's a guy I don't replace. There's a guy I don't move. You just saw, right, Yankees and Rangers, you saw a whole series with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. What did you think of him?
Very good player. And what stood out about the three players you highlighted is, you know, we're going to use an old-timey expression. They're really good baseball players.
Right.
You know, there's nothing on the field that they don't do well. And I've thought since last year and really this year, as the game has become so homer, strikeout, walk dependent, that people who defy some of this are the hidden gems. Like, how do we get to be a better baseball team? Well, what if we have a guy who consistently puts the ball in play hard and doesn't strike out easy? I think one of the things we've seen, we can't say it's coincidence anymore. I think it's going back to the Royals. The team that wins the World Series is often a team that is among the best in the sports at defying strikeouts. So having more players who can defy strikeouts, field the ball when the other team doesn't strike out, create extra bases on the, it's hard to get a run scored these days. Hey, if a guy could go first to third a lot, score from first on a double, these are all incredibly valuable things, and I think that's what stood out about your group.
What do you make of that, Dan?
To me, there's a consistent theme through all three guys that you brought up, BK, and I thought you picked three great players. And the consistent theme is, one, they know the strike zone. And number two, as a young players, they can hit. And when you add in versatility that Jake and Isaiah bring to the ballpark and the durability that Bogaerts brings to the ballpark every day, as you notice, their power is starting to come over a period of time. But I think we get surprised by these players a little bit as an industry because they come into the game with a reputation for being good players. They're not great players because there's not one tool that blows you away. But the power then begins to come mixed with the other tools they already have, and all of a sudden you have superstars.
And I want to ask, I think we threw this around yesterday. We never got on the air yesterday watching the Rays go.
The best show ever.
We're just sitting here all dressed up, nowhere to go. But I brought you up and our thought exercise of if you're the Texas Rangers, if you're running the Rangers and you know, wow, there's Trevor Story, there's Corey Seager, it's a lot of money, but you can get a battleship player, right? This superstar shortstop player. If I already have Kiner-Falefa, though, don't I just build around that guy? Or he's number one in defense. He's number one in base running. He's not like top 10. He's number one, and he's hitting above league average. I'd have a tendency to try to spend my money around that guy, not displace him.
I agree with you completely. The issue there, though, BK, they got a gigantic hole at third base. He was an elite defender at third base. And so if you could find maybe a Chris Bryant that goes to third base, though his upside may be his ability to play other positions, then those other shortstops may become attractive because you can add an aircraft carrier at short and take your current shortstop and make him the aircraft carrier at third.
How much value do you lose by moving that elite fielding shortstop over to third base? Like, you lose kind of what makes him super special, don't you?
It does, but when you look at putting a team together, now we've got an elite defender at third base. I shut down the left side of the infield.
What do you make of that?
I agree with Dan because I think they've been associated with Trevor Story more than any other team.
He comes from that area.
He's from a suburb of Dallas. They've kind of been building towards this offseason to clean up some payroll and get in position to maybe do something big. And I like the term shut down left side because we might quibble Kiner-Falefa is better than Story. Story's an exceptional defensive shortstop.
Yeah.
Kiner-Falefa was a gold glove third baseman. I now have two superb all-around players on that side. So if you're thinking aircraft carrier, my aircraft carrier is left side of the infield. Now, what else do I do to improve my team?
Okay. Give me a guy that you like out there that's slightly under the radar.
So I'm going to pick Miguel Rojas. And I think when you began this, you talked shortstop and you talked about Bogaerts. I think the shortstop play is so great in the sport that you could fail to make the top 5 and still be a top, 30 player. I mean, we don't talk about Trey Turner. We don't talk about Bogaerts. We don't talk about Tim Anderson. And we certainly don't talk about Miguel Rojas. No. I would say the last 2 years, he's hit like Michael Brantley the last 2 years, while he has been above average defensive in all the metrics since 2018. He might be the 10th or 12th best shortstop and still a top 100 player. And the blessing for me is because I watch all the Mets and Yankee games. I see this guy play all the time, and I leave every game that he plays and goes, you know, he whether his team won or lost, he did stuff to help his team win. He, again, falls into that category of good baseball player.
I'm looking at the numbers there. If we were doing top 10 right now, and you could just transport Miguel Rojas 7-8 years ago, he'd be a top 4 shortstop in the game.
Right.
Maybe not number 1. It was always Troy Tulowitzki.
That's how much that position.
Troy Tulowitzki, Jose Reyes would be 1, 2. Everyone was always getting hurt. And right now he can't crack the top 10.
And that's why I'm careful there where I say you might not be a top 5 shortstop, but are you a top 30 or 50 player in the game?
Right.
Like whoever falls out of that top 5 with Turner and Story and Lindor and Seager. I mean, the 6th best shortstop is going to be what, the 20th best player in the whole sport? Yeah. So I think you could go 12 or 13 deep and feel like I got a well above average player.
All right, give me somebody. Who you got?
Jesse Winker. You know, one of the greatest joys in this job is I get a chance to see a player like Jesse as a young player in Olympia High School in Orlando under development guru in Jarrett Goodwin. He always could walk. He always knew the strike zone. His on-base percentage was always a guy that was a above-average hitter, questionable power coming out. Guess what, guys? The power has caught up. Look at the 2020 to 21. He's been a good player for 2 years. You know, his weighted run created plus since 2020. He's number 2 in the game behind a guy named Michael Trout. And as you can see that the power just keeps coming because the elite hit ability was always there. The game needs more players like this. Good hitters, understand the strike zone, patient, power comes.
Interesting. Good stuff.